In this episode, I sit down with Jamie Lennon out of San Diego, who uses video content creation to leverage leads. Stay tuned. As always, I'm your host in San Francisco connection, Shawn Kunkler. Thanks for joining me today. I was super stoked to chat with you.
I'm very excited to be here.
It's funny, you almost invited yourself. I have to be honest.
I did. Well, good. Then I know what I want.
I got your marketing piece a while back, which I just absolutely loved. And I immediately responded. I was like, this is such a good approach. And I just really enjoyed it. And then immediately was like, we need to connect on the show. So to give people context, your video was only a minute, maybe two minutes. And it was introducing you and your business and where you are and how you can help. And it was just so nicely done. I guess let me just kick it back to you. What inspired you to do that piece?
When I moved to San Diego, I knew that I had to really connect with any relationship in the Bay Area, because that's where my roots were for the last 10 years. And that's where my business started, was the Bay Area. So I knew that having experience working as a realtor in the Bay Area was kind of like my niche. And I was able to potentially grab referrals from Bay Area agents because they felt that I could relate to them or even their clients, because we know that the market in the Bay Area is unlike any market anywhere else. So I had started marketing to Bay Area agents first and foremost when I first got here. And I send a different video. So I try to make a different video every single month, just showcasing who I am and the value that I can provide. And it's done wonderful. I mean, I get referrals from people that I know, but mostly people that I don't know. So agents that I've never really had a relationship with in the past, but my videos are resonating with people, which I think it's great. That was the goal.
That is the goal. I mean, the biggest challenge we have as marketers, which realtors are first and foremost, we're marketers, is getting your content consumed. It's by far the hardest piece.
Right.
And we have such a quick filter, especially with social. If we don't like it within 3 seconds, we're done. And so it's a challenge. So good job for breaking that barrier. And what I liked about it is it wasn't personal to me, which I was fine with, but you said, I can't remember exactly what you said, but you made reference to the Bay Area referral network, which I knew I fell into that category. So within that, if people are listening, what I liked was you tailored your message specific for a group. You essentially segmented your marketing. You didn't try to just like do this generic thing and hit everybody in every state, in every neighborhood. Like you really you drilled down and really hit this like really specific need that we have here. And the other thing I think is brilliant is not only was it your backyard, but you're very normal in that move. I've had probably a dozen clients move from the Bay Area to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
It's smart because you already reverse engineered. You know exactly where people are coming from.
I can take it a step further. So when I moved here, the Bay Area was my number one priority because that's what I know. But I went and I found out who's relocating to San Diego, what states, what cities. And I found that the top cities are Chicago, Los Angeles, and the Bay Area. So I not only market to the Bay Area, but I make separate videos for agents in Chicago and then separate videos for agents in Los Angeles.
That's brilliant.
Everybody that's moving to San Diego, the majority of them are coming from those markets.
And you put out, you were saying basically to that group, you do a video a month is roughly your cadence?
About 6 weeks or so.
The other piece that I really loved about it, because we get these emails as agents I probably have 50 emails in my inbox right now.
Yeah.
It's like an icy pick in my spine is when somebody in the subject line or opens the email with how big of a referral they'll pay me. Like that's not important to me. What's important to me is my client being taken care of. And in your entire video, there was zero reference of fees or percentages or anything. And I really like that because it made me immediately feel that you're in it for a different reason.
Well, yeah, that I'm not trying to just grab agents that are looking for the biggest payout.
Yeah, because in the Bay Area, and you touched on it earlier. I mean, San Diego. I think you actually just recently dethroned us. We were of the most expensive places in all of California, and now I think it's shifted to San Diego. And within that, you're dealing with pretty high net worth clients with high profile positions, and so they do have a different set of needs coming into this.
We did dethrone the Bay Area, or more specifically San Francisco, as being the most expensive place to live, but wages are not up there. So Bay Area has the high wages. We are not going to be able to beat them on that. So it's tough, but the people that are moving here, that are buying homes here, for the most part, they're not necessarily from here. I've helped. I mean, maybe that's the clientele that I'm getting because I do market towards relo and people relocating from all over the place. I even have a couple that are moving from New Zealand out to San Diego. But yeah, we're up there with high cost of living, but we need some better paying jobs down here.
I feel like that's a common thread pretty much across the board.
Nothing can beat the Bay Area in that aspect.
I'm from Connecticut originally, and when I first moved here over 2 decades ago, I remember just being completely blown away at how many really nice cars you'll see in one block. Like, you're just like, oh my God, does everybody have a $100,000 car here?
Pretty much. But then you go to Los Angeles and it's like different type of expensive cars. I feel like Bay Area, they spend their money on nice cars, but more practical luxury cars. You go to neighborhoods in Los Angeles and those nice cars are like Lamborghinis and Aston Martins. So in my experience, you didn't really see a lot of those up in the Bay Area, but it's, different type of wealth, I guess.
Here, we're the backyard of Tesla. And so, I mean, we have one. Everybody has it. Like, if you go down my street, there'll be cars in front of the houses. Like 90% of them are Teslas.
Yeah, when I first moved to the Bay Area, it was 2013, and I'm like, what is this car? Like, that's when they were really starting to come out, and I'm like, what is this car? Because I came from Southern California, and I was like, we don't have these down here, and now everybody has one.
So where in the Bay Area did you focus your business?
I was in South Bay. Well, I should say South Bay and the Peninsula, because I started in San Jose and then I changed offices to Los Altos. And when I went to Los Altos, naturally my business kind of shifted to more on the Peninsula. So anything up, Redwood City, Palo Alto, Mountain View, Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale's not Peninsula, but I kind of was more heading more north, I would say, towards the end of my career before I moved.
And have you been able to really tap into that network as you transition to San Diego?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I moved, I let everybody know what I was doing, especially all my clientele, and let them know that I can still help them. So for the first year when I was in San Diego, I was flying back and forth, still doing business up in the Bay Area. And then I really had to make a decision because it was taking away from my focus of being in San Diego. And I knew that I needed to take the time to really build myself back up in San Diego. So after about a year of commuting back and forth, I just focused on San Diego. And I always feel bad though, because all my past clients, just naturally, you kind of start losing touch with people. I mean, when you move, you lose touch with your friends. So my clients, I've been losing touch with them up in the Bay Area, but I'm only one person. I can only do so much, but I definitely have a lot of connections in the real estate industry up in the Bay Area because a lot of my personal friends are realtors. They're all in the business. So I still keep in touch with all of them.
Yeah, and to your point, I talked to Kim Halverson a while back, who moved from LA to Bend, Oregon, and same challenges is because you're not in that market, you're not connecting and bouncing off of your clients as you used to, and then those relationships start to retreat a little bit, and it's hard because you're literally in 2 different markets juggling it. Do you still market or do any communication?
I don't know. I mean, I have certain automations that are still going up for my Bay Area clients, but that's is pretty much as far as it's been for the last year.
Mm.
And then I have some that reached out to me and they're like, we had a baby. And I'm like, oh, I wish I can give you a gift. I can mail you a gift, but it's just, before I would go and drop off a gift for them because they just had a newborn, but I'm not able to have those personal touches anymore just from being in a different market. It's not a quick drive.
Yeah, I can totally see that. The challenge of the distance creates a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And the one thing, I mean, with our business, especially with the uptick of AI and technology, I firmly feel it's that personal touch, that personal showing up with a gift versus mailing it. It's those little pieces incrementally, they add up to big transactions.
Whenever you hand over those keys, there's always that moment where that you just worked close with this couple or this person for the last 2 months, talking every day, seeing them, every other day, whatever it is until they find a property. And then things kind of taper off. And so when you're handing over the keys, it's almost like this awkward sometimes of, I know we're and our relationships like coming to a halt, but when you start showing up after the fact and keeping in touch with them, they're almost amazed because it doesn't have to be over just because they bought a house. Like you can still maintain a relationship. So I think clients appreciate it so much when you stay in touch with them, even if it's so simple, like how's the house? Like how's, whatever you can, reach out to them, just ask them a simple question. They really kind of feel like, oh, wow, she's still thinking about us. So I think it's important to know that if you're, especially with buyers, keeping in touch with them, they appreciate it so much.
Of the two, because the Bay Area, San Francisco specifically, when people sell, there's a high likelihood that they just leave the area. And so those people we tend to lose connection with, just because as you shared earlier, when you leave an area, it becomes harder. But the buyers, statistically, they're going to sell in just a few years. And so to your point, if you just maintain that relationship, like a real relationship, not just like this, like,
here's a holiday card.
Yeah, I sent them a holiday card and they didn't call me when they were ready to sell, but you actually took the initiative. They wind up becoming, it's interesting. And I know what you mean. There is this awkward transition where they realize after the transaction that you actually liked them and they weren't just a transaction. And then it's like you kind of bond a little bit more, and then it transitions. And I've had this happen numerous times, is suddenly they become a wealth of referrals. And it's usually that 3, 6, 9 months after they've purchased and you've stuck around. You're like, hey, are you enjoying the new home? Are you getting settled in? And you actually care.
I just took my clients out to lunch. They bought a home in San Diego and they were coming up on their year anniversary, and just went out to lunch with them. And they were like, we try. They're like, everybody that we talk to, especially if they're, thinking about buying or selling, they're like, we throw your name around everywhere. They're like my biggest cheerleaders. Like they want to find somebody to refer to me so bad. And I was like, that is so thoughtful. And yeah, they turn into your biggest cheerleaders if you maintain that relationship. If you don't, they're not going to give you a second thought.
100%. And it's such an honor too when somebody holds you in such high regard.
Yeah.
I know for me, I'm going to dinner tonight with one of my dear friends, and there's absolutely no way I will refer anybody to her unless I fully trust that they're going to really wholeheartedly take care of her from beginning to end. And so when somebody says that, like, I internalize it. It's such an honor. It's such a big deal of somebody being a champion for you, that you helped them through a process. And not for nothing, but real estate, buying or selling, is, I think it's in the top 3 list of most stressful things you can do in your entire life.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's kind of chat about your YouTube channel, because I feel like this conveys, you really do put a different spotlight on things. You don't have a ton. You do, like, we all talk about properties and things like that, but you put a bigger spotlight on showcasing San Diego. And I feel it's just a nicer communication in. So let's kind of chat about your strategy with your channel.
So social media for me does not come naturally. I have never been a natural poster. Going back on, Facebook times, Facebook era, I didn't post, what I did that weekend, and I was a little bit more private in that aspect. So I kind of struggled over the years being really consistent on social media. And I tried out TikTok and realized that short form isn't necessarily for me, or at least not right now. I haven't found my groove in the short form content. Now, long form content is completely different. I actually really love the process, and it takes me a very long time. I mean, some people think there's no way you can have all this focus on your clients while still doing YouTube, if I were to tell you how many hours it takes me a week, but I enjoy it so much. And I love San Diego wholeheartedly. I think San Diego is the best city. Nobody can prove me wrong. So when I'm making these videos, I feel like that it really comes out. I really enjoy making the videos, and I enjoy what I'm talking about. And I think that is absolutely key to my success on YouTube. And I just started this year, and I'm very excited to see what the next 12 months have in store for me.
Short form is interesting. And I feel like the attention span on short form is even harder than long form.
Well, and long form is evergreen too.
And the other big secret is, which is not a secret, but YouTube's owned by Google, and Google is the #1 search engine. And so long form is highly, highly searchable if you SEO it correctly. And like with San Francisco or San Diego, a lot of people, tons of people travel there or are relocating, and they're going to look up, hey, we're the top 5 neighborhoods in San Diego. And if it's your video popping up time and time again, and you have a whole arsenal of videos for them to sit down and digest, when they're ready to buy or sell, they're like, hey, actually, you know what? Jamie's super cool. Let's give her a call. And it pre-positions you in an amazing way. And you do weave it in. I've watched a bunch of your videos, and you're like, hey, I'm a realtor. I know the market. I know what's going on over here and here. Here's a really cool place to hang out and check out. And it's done in marketing. It's hard, I find, to do things in an elegant way without just hitting people over the head or doing the whole like price slash race to the bottom strategy.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely some growing pains with YouTube. I learned quickly, I would say, and I still have so much to learn. But, I used to spend like 30 seconds in the beginning talking too much about me, basically like introducing myself. And I'm like, I got to cut that out. And I was like, I'm not going to ask people to subscribe. I got to cut that out. Like, I just want to get straight to the point. If people want to subscribe, they want to subscribe. That's great. And they usually do after they watch a couple videos. But you gotta like find your groove with any type of social media that you're doing. And one thing that I discovered, so when I made the decision, it was December of last year, that I was going full-fledged, like full on YouTube. Of course, I did all my market research, and I found out who are the YouTubers, their agents in the area, and they were all men. There was not a single woman that was promoting herself on YouTube. And I was like, bingo, there's my in right now, because there's a bunch of men and they're all great, but I was going to be the first woman. So I was going to give a different perspective for the people that were kind of looking for somebody that was like me. And so I actually get people that reach out to me, majority women, and they're like, my husband actually wanted him, but I was like, no, we have to go to her, because now when they're on YouTube, now they're looking at all the agents that are on YouTube. And so you're going to relate to a certain group of people, but not necessarily all of them. And that's totally okay.
100%. And I think especially as you jump into social media, I think it's a very healthy approach to know in advance that you are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that's totally fine. And those aren't going to be your raving fans. Go just talk to the group who are going to be your raving fans. And there's going to be plenty of them who will create transactions for you. And then eventually you'll get the fringe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's smart that you also did the market research. Did you do market research on the types of videos and the type of content that you wanted to create?
I did. And basically the type of content that I wanted to create, it was already being done. Everybody that was making content, all the agents that were making content in San Diego were basically doing the same type of content. So we were breaking down cities and neighborhoods. And one guy more focuses on the number aspect of things. So he's talking about like developments and, different laws and things that are coming into the city of San Diego. So he's a little bit different, but for the most part, I'm making very similar content to everybody else. But I'm okay with that because I could be making the same video on a certain city in San Diego, but it's going to be different in somebody's eyes. And it's not going to be the exact same video either. So it just is a different perspective than what the other guy is going to be doing.
It's you. Like that is the unique key aspect. It's you. And we don't all resonate with all people. And if somebody likes the way you're approaching it or the way that your perspective on things, they tend to start leaning in and trusting, oh, if she likes this neighborhood and I like this neighborhood, let me hear what she has to say about this neighborhood.
Right.
When I come across those videos, if I'm looking up something for business and somebody's getting super technical and losing me, I'll go find the person who can explain it in a way that matches with me.
Right, right.
And I think the end of the day, there's nothing new under the sun. Like you're not going to create a new video, but you can definitely create a version of it that is uniquely you. And even if you try to remake it, it's going to be totally different because you're different and your perspective's different. And so I think it's a healthy way to approach these problems.
For any type of service industry out there, people want to find you on social media first because that's a sure way of actually finding somebody that you can connect with before meeting them in person. And so social media, no matter what avenue that you pick, is the most important thing for, I believe, any business, especially a service-based business, is being on social media, letting people see who you are and not being afraid to be who you are as well, because a lot of people will think that they're not good enough or they're not as good as the last person or the people that they follow. But I struggled with that for a long time. I felt nobody took me seriously and I had to get over that real quick. And YouTube actually helped me get over that because I got such positive feedback and I'm like, oh, okay, well, these are all my intrusive thoughts, not what other people are thinking. So
it's true. I mean, we make up this weird, sometimes I do. You make up narratives and they're not even, and then somebody will check you and you're like, oh, I wasn't even close to being accurate. So cool. I'll just keep going. And I do like what you said. You go back and you watch your videos and you evaluate them. And that's hard too, because you have to be very objective and not critical of, like, if I objectively look at this, then, hey, I actually need to cut this section down and increase this section. Same with the podcast. Like, I look at the early episodes of sitting down with people and how it's evolved to today. And it's a world of difference. And even starting this, I think we're 40-ish episodes out, but I made a pact with myself when I started that I'm really not going to do a deep dive evaluation until I have 100 under my belt.
Yeah.
And at that point, I will have done enough of them and have put enough on all the different platforms to really step back and then have an idea of what's working, what's not working, how I can tweak it, and how I can improve it.
My first 10 videos, I think I have like 50 or so. My first 10 videos, I'm like, ooh, Jamie. Oh boy. But I leave them there because I'm never ever going to delete my earlier videos, even though some of them are just so bad. I mean, I used to use a filter on my face and I'm like, you could tell there's a filter on my face and all these things, but it's such a good reminder. And I actually love sometimes like watching those earlier videos because it gives me that boost of confidence and you can really see how far the work that you've done, how hard you've worked and where it's gotten you. So I love those earlier videos and it's just such a reminder to keep going, and 50 videos is nothing. I need to get to at least 100 until I feel like I'll actually really, really find my groove with it.
I'm not sure if you know who Casey Neistat is, or Gary Vaynerchuk, like huge prolific social media guys. Somebody did like pulled their first two or their very first videos each, and then had them with their most recent video, kind of like a side by side, night and day. It was astonishing. It was like, it would be the equivalent of looking at a 4-year-old and then the same person 30 years later. It's like such an astonishing amount of growth.
And those guys have like 15 plus years under their belt too. Like they have a lot of hours. What do they say, 10,000 hours before you become an expert? Like I think they're at 10,000 hours, definitely.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of service industries and providing value, Gary Vaynerchuk started, his original was his family owned a liquor store, and he started Wine Library, and his strategy was to cater to people who drink beer. And how do I make wine as accessible as it is to beer? And so he made this like very like down to earth bro style, like back when like VHSs were a thing and the internet was like just coming into its own. It was this very raw, and I think he took, if I could be mistaken, but he took the business from like a few $100,000 a year to like a $30 million company by providing this level of service and pushing it out to the masses through the marketing vehicle.
He knew how to market.
I think real estate agents are marketers who also do transactions.
Yeah.
It's networking. That's part of marketing. Your brand, how are you actually showing up? That's all connected to your marketing. And then sales is always hinged to marketing as well.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't have good marketing, I don't think we would ever excel unless we're in a position to, receive business, which some people are, depending on, what type of clientele they focus on. But for the majority that are freshly getting their license, having a marketing plan is one of those important things. There's this agent in the Bay Area that I looked up to, and she really is big in Sunnyvale like that. She dominates Sunnyvale, every zip code in Sunnyvale. And she would tell her story of when she was getting licensed, the first 6 months while she was doing her coursework, she created an entire marketing plan and she started executing it right when she got her license. And in a year, she was the number one, like the expert for Sunnyvale. And it was just her marketing. She knew what she was doing.
I literally, the last episode we recorded was with the Knox brothers out of Florida. I think combined as a team, they've only been together for 4 years, and they already are the number one in the neighborhood by really being super strategic and really aggressive about their marketing. And same as you, they approached it as the relationship first. Like, what does the consumer actually want and need to hear from us? And how do we serve that up to them? And I think we're also in this time globally, there's so much free vehicles out there. Like YouTube is a completely free vehicle. And the majority of us, you have to have a phone to do business. You have to have a computer to do business. So you already have the tools to create. You just need the plan and the execution.
And consistency.
Consistency is the hardest. That is the hardest part of it all.
It is. When I first got in the business, I was like, I'm going to cold call. I did it for a month and I'm like, I'm not going to cold call anymore. Like,
me too.
I created this whole plan to work with expired listings. And I was like, I had this step-by-step approach for expired. I did it for a month and I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So really finding something that you enjoy doing is very important or you're not going to stick with it.
Amen. I did the same thing. I tried cold calling. I did it for maybe 3 months. I actually got a really amazing listing opportunity. Hated it. I hated every second of it. And then I tried door knocking. I did that for a few months. And then it didn't jive with me. And then I started looking at these different vehicles. Mine was open houses. And then I would just market the whole, like, that's when I leveraged door knocking correctly, but I would really go hard on the specific neighborhoods and put myself out there, as you shared, and really leverage that. And then eventually I parlayed it and really leveraged social media.
Open houses is what started my business. That's how I used to get 90% of my clients. The first 3 years were all open houses. I feel like I was really good at them. It's going back to the basics. You're getting people that are ready to buy a house, or sometimes sellers walking right to you. They're right there for you.
Right there.
Yep. You're not searching for them. They're coming to you. So being able to build a connection and learn how to convert them is one of the most beneficial things for any agent to have under their belt, is open houses.
Same. I completely agree. And I looked at it exactly the same way. Is I stepped back and I was like, okay, where are buyers hanging out and how do I get in front of them? And I was like, open houses are kind of a no-brainer. And within that, if you pick the right open houses, you can reverse engineer what those buyers are actually looking for. So you can really curate the type of business you'll ultimately have. Like if you're hosting fixers all the time, you're probably going to work with a bunch of developers. If you're hosting luxury properties, you're probably going to have a bunch of luxury buyers. And so you can really tailor your whole business based on that. And you can also tailor all of your social media based on around your activities.
Yes.
They intertwine so perfectly.
Yeah, they really do.
When you made the switch to San Diego, did you also go back and lean into open houses?
It's something that I probably should have done looking back, because that was my bread and butter. But when I moved to San Diego, I still had my business up in the Bay Area. So I was working a lot of back and forth that first year. So it wasn't until my second year where I really just focused 100% on San Diego. And I said, okay, what am I going to do here? And that's when I started my YouTube. And I have done open houses here and there, but I don't do them like I used to. I used to, every weekend I was doing an open house. So I have scaled that back a little bit. Yeah.
We only have so many hours in a day. You have to pick which targets you want to hit.
But I still enjoy them.
They're amazing.
Always enjoy open houses. Yeah.
The one challenge about open houses is you're only available to pick up buyers for, let's say, a 2-hour period. But if you create a really good video, that thing will work while you're sleeping forever.
Right.
The second somebody searches, hey, what are the top 10 neighborhoods in San Diego? Bloop, you're working and you're not doing a thing.
The evergreen content, because short form content, so Reels, TikTok, you have to continuously make content day in and day out, and always have something new that you're posting, because what you posted a month ago is not going to have, any merit to you actually getting a client or anything like that. I almost look at it like as a nurturing or brand awareness, short form content. And then it's like my nurturing to the people who subscribe to my YouTube, and then they follow me on Instagram.
That's a great way to look at it. Are your primary vehicles are YouTube and Instagram, or are you using any other platforms?
YouTube and Instagram. I did TikTok for about a year and I was drained. It completely drained me because it wasn't necessarily for me. The short form content I didn't find as much enjoyment out of, and thinking about 5 different videos to post a day compared to 1 video to post a week, I realized my niche was YouTube instead of TikTok. But I love TikTok. I think TikTok is one of the best social media platforms out there. And I think that it's going to do people very well to get familiar with TikTok and get comfortable utilizing TikTok, because I think that's where we're really heading.
Yeah. And I also really appreciate hearing that you figured out right? You figured out, like, what's the thing that I enjoy doing? And then how can I just do more of that? And I think the other mistake that I hear people make, which it sounds like you clearly decided to not go that route, is they try to create too much or try to be on too many social platforms. And then they wind up, and I see this all the time, but then they try to blast things that are designed for one platform on the other platforms that it's not designed for. And it doesn't land. It's like you gotta, again, it goes back, know your audience, know what they're looking for, and figure out how to like serve that up to them.
I see a lot of people that will on TikTok and they'll post videos like a YouTube video, which it's a different size and it doesn't work with the people on TikTok. TikTok is a very specific audience, just like Instagram's very specific and YouTube's very specific. So yeah, just like what you said, you have to post content, whatever platform you're using, you have to post it for that audience that's on that social media platform because they are all different animals. You have to treat them all differently.
I think the other thing that's really funny is, and you brought it up earlier, most of our close friends are also realtors because we hang out with them all the time.
Yeah.
So within that, we tend to follow each other on Instagram. And then within that, we tend to network across, like you're networking with the Bay Area and San Diego, and I'm networking with the podcast on basically all 50 states. And so if I'm creating content for buyers, for example, about why they should buy or sell, I'm not hitting the target of the audience who's realtors on my channel. And it's like, so many people just miss that mark. It's like, look at who's actually consuming your stuff and create things for them.
Right.
Like, not for nothing, I don't think buyers are going to look up realtors to follow on Instagram by and large.
When I follow other agents on Instagram, it's because I like their content and I'm like, ooh, I could use that. Like I follow them, you know, I'll follow somebody from Florida because I really like the reels that they make. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to kind of use that and recreate this. But that's the only reason why I would follow other agents if I don't know them personally. It's because secretly I'm like, oh, I can recreate that. Like, you know, you don't recreate the wheel, just copy and paste sometimes.
For sure. I mean, yeah, it's the quickest way to A to Z is just copy someone else's pattern. Like, there's no point in trying to figure out how to bake a cake from scratch. You can just follow the recipe. That's what it's there for. But I think to your point is figure out, like, I don't want to do any song and dance on TikTok, so that's not where I hang out. Like, I much rather do the podcast and get to fellow realtors, colleagues, as they're driving from place to place. The content's for realtors to help them evolve and change their business and grow. And if they have a referral coming my way or your way, and they've sat through an episode, they're like, hey, you know what? I actually think these people would be great to work with my client. And so that's, again, you gotta, marketing really, really genuinely comes down to just knowing who you're talking to.
Knowing who you're talking to. And there's so many different avenues with social media, just like you said, even podcasting that fits into that as well with, you know, creating videos. But as long as you're doing something and you're really consistent and that's something that you're doing and you show up every day, you are going to get that brand awareness and it will work out long term if you stick with it. It
sounds like you have already initiated or gotten the opportunity to work with people who have found you through YouTube.
I get a lot of renters. And so I had to, in the beginning, I knew that was going to happen. And so I didn't necessarily create a plan in the beginning of what I would do with people that were looking for rentals. And so I quickly realized I had to come up with something so I can still help and capture people that were looking to rent. But I would say the first client took me about 6 months. Took me about 6 months of being consistent. And the pipeline that I have now set up for the following year, for next year, it's only growing.
That's amazing. I mean, in 6 months at that price point, you've basically, it's paid for itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
One client after 6 months. It's like,
I was expecting at least a year. I was like, okay, I'm heading into 2024. But that wasn't the case.
Do you have a marketing background?
I do not. I wish. I always said if I can redo it, I'd go and get my degree in marketing.
It sounds like you, or you've obviously you've read up on it and studied it and you understand it, or you understand it intuitively. But it sounds like you have a very healthy approach to it.
I think trial and error.
It's usually the best teacher by far.
And I got into real estate. Well, I got my license in 2015, and that's when Instagram was just kind of starting to take off. And I remember back then, I did not like the idea of posting on Instagram because I wasn't really on social media, and like I wasn't even really on Facebook. And so I had to force myself for a little while there to really push myself to be on Instagram. And yeah, I just had to learn, like, you just have to do it. Like, this is the industry you're in. This isn't 20 years ago. This is 18 when I really started. And you just have to do it. It's part of the business. It's part of being an agent in this market.
The simple rule is if somebody doesn't know who you are, they're not doing business with you. And it's literally as simple as that. And it's like,
yeah, I can see the people on my YouTube. I will see them. I'll get the notification. They will subscribe to my YouTube channel. Then they go on my website. They fill in their information because I have a call to action on my website. And then from there, they go and they follow me on Instagram. I can see it right before my eyes. They're checking out everything, my website, my social media. So yeah, you could see right there, like, you have to have a presence online everywhere and have a good welcoming presence too. Because if somebody might like my YouTube, but they go on my Instagram and they're not liking what I'm posting, then that's it. End of the road.
Yeah. And so many times, even just a simple referral, like from a past client, they'll make the introduction and I'll sit down with this new person and they're like, yeah, we looked you up on whatever. We read the reviews or we looked at this. And like, even if they're not like subscribing and doing those things, they're doing it anyways. They are definitely checking us out. Like, they're doing their research as they should. And so it behooves everybody to just get that content out. When I first started in the business, I think it was like 4 to maybe 6 months. I decided that if you type my name in, I want to be on the first page of Google. Like, I just want to be able to saturate that page. So if somebody meets me at an open house and they get in their car and they pull out their phone and they type in my name, there's enough of a track record. There's something there for them to consume, something. And then eventually I built it and kept stacking onto it. But I have the same challenges I don't love social media. It's not my go-to. And we have a business channel, then I have my personal channel, and it's hard. Like, it's genuinely one of those things it's hard for me to do.
I'm right there with you. It's not natural for me. I have to really schedule time. And like yesterday, it took me one solid hour to post on Instagram. That's too long, but that's how long it took me to figure out what to post, what caption, and to actually hit post. And to me, that's too long. To me, that shows me that I'm not necessarily a natural at that aspect of social media, but you have to do it.
And I think the other mistake is which kind of backs into what we talked about, is when people just farm it out and then they have somebody else posting for them. It loses all authenticity and they don't actually connect with you, the individual.
No.
If we think about our best friends or our closest friends, we know a lot about them, not just their job. We know what they like, what they don't like. If they have pets, the pet's name. We know where they like to vacation and what their hobbies are. And that's when people are consuming our information, they want to know that's what connects them to us. Is like, oh, this person has this challenge. I do too. I identify with them. We're on the same page. They're on my team. And it pulls people into the fold. So I get it. Like, I have the same, I probably have taken an hour with the post before. I'm sure I have. And then deleted it anyways. I was like, nah, I'm not going to post this.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Sometimes you just have to do it. But I think doing it it's like working out. A bad workout is better than not doing it at all. Like, you still strengthen your heart, you strengthen your lungs, and you're still making forward progress.
Yeah. And then you're proud of yourself that you did it. So
exactly. So I'm super stoked for you. I'm going to follow your page along for the next year and watch your your evolution and growth. And yeah, keep the marketing coming. Honestly, like there's so many people that I unsubscribe immediately, and yours was honestly, and I'm not just saying it because we're sitting in front of each other, but it was a breath of fresh air. Your approach was unique and absolutely welcomed. So if you ever have that moment of hesitation, don't remember me saying this.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I really do. I had a guy tell me he called me and he goes, "Tell your parents they did a good job." And I'm like, "What?" It was the most random compliment, but I'm like, "Will do." He was calling because he wanted to buy it. He's a client, potential client, but I just thought that I was like, okay. And he's probably my age. It's not like, an older gentleman.
Yeah, I imagined an old guy.
Exactly. No, it wasn't like a guy, retiree. And no, he was like my age. And I was like, okay, sure. But I was like, thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
Well, on that note, I think that's the perfect way to end cap this episode. Jamie, thanks for joining me today. I actually really appreciated hearing about your business.
Thank you so much, Shawn. I enjoyed this. This was really fun.